Hello, my dear children of 10th standard. Now, in this video, we are going to study a chapter from your supplementary book. The name of the chapter is Footprints Without Feet, written by H.G. Wells. So, the story Footprints Without Feet describes the story of a brilliant scientist, Griffin, who degenerated himself into a lawless person. Lawless person means a person who disobeys the law. So Griffin discovered that human body could become transparent and invisible. But he misused his great discovery. He did not use the power of invisibility for the welfare of the society and humanity at large. He misused it to threaten trouble and beat innocent persons and rob them. The lesson gives us a message that misuse of science and its great discoveries can make even a brilliant scientist like Griffin a monster and a threatening lawless person. So let us begin the story. But very first, I'll give you short introduction about the writer H.G. Wells. Herbert George Wells was born on 21st September 1866 in England. He was a great writer who wrote novels, history, and science fiction. The most famous works of H.G. Wells are The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, The Island of Dr. Moreau. He died on 13th August 1946. So now let us begin the story. Two boys were highly surprised. They saw muddy impressions on the steps of a house in London. They were the fresh footmarks of a barefooted man. The boys followed them. The impressions got fainter and finally disappeared. The mystery of footmarks was quite simple. The boys were following a scientist. He had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Griffin was a great scientist. He carried out many experiments to prove that human body could become invisible. In the end, he swallowed some experiments to prove that human body could become invisible. In the end, he swallowed some rare drugs and his body became transparent. He was a lawless person, means he was not obeying law. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. In revenge, Griffin set his house on fire. Griffin had to remove all his clothes if wanted to be unseen by the people. He became a homeless wanderer without clothes. He had no money. He left footmarks as he walked. The air was bitterly cold. Griffin was naked, means without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he entered a London store for warmth. He enjoyed the pleasure of clothes and food freely. He fitted himself out with warm clothes there. He became fully dressed up with shoes, an overcoat, and a hat. After putting on clothes, he became visible. He had cold meat and coffee, sweets and wine from the grocery store. He slept on a pile of quilts. He didn't wake up until the assistants arrived next morning. When they came near, he panicked and began to run. But He could become invisible, only he was totally naked. So he took off his newly found clothes. Once more, he became naked in the chill January air. He hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theatre world. He found a shop. He was searching. He came upstairs, invisible. He came out of the shop wearing bandages round his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, side whiskers, and a large hat. Then he attacked a shopkeeper and robbed him of all the money he could find. Griffin wanted to get away from the crowded London. He came to village Iping. He booked 2 rooms in a local inn. Inn means we can say a restaurant, or we can say it is a casual type of the place where the owner also lives, and in down there is restaurant, and upward 4 to 5 rooms is there where people are living for some days. So he booked 2 rooms in a local inn. Arrival of a stranger of such strange appearance became the talk of the people. Mrs. Hall tried to be friendly with her guest, Griffin. He told that he didn't want to be disturbed. He wanted to be alone. She thought that her guest was an eccentric scientist. She didn't mind his strange habit and irritable temper. Griffin's cash finished. He told a lie that he was expecting a check at any moment. A strange episode occurred. A clergyman, means a priest, and his wife were awakened by the noises in the study very early in the morning. They came downstairs and heard the chink of money being taken from the desk with a poker. Poker means a metal rod in his hand. The clergyman flung open the door. He shouted, "Surrender." He was surprised to see the room empty. They looked under the desk, behind the curtains, and even up the chimney. No one was there. They found the desk open and the money was missing. They were highly surprised, couldn't understand anything. The landlord and his wife, Mrs. Hall, woke up very early. They found Griffin's door wide open. Usually it was shut and locked. They peeped around but found nobody. They found Griffin's clothes and bandages were lying about. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. Sniff means a voice. So a hat leapt up and dashed itself into her face. Then the chair became alive. They turned away in fear. Then chair pushed them both out of the room. Then the door was slammed and locked after them. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs. That the trouble was caused by witchcraft. Means they thought that the trouble was caused by black magic. When the news of burglary at the clergyman's home became known, everyone doubted Griffin's hand in it. This suspicion grew stronger when Griffin suddenly showed some ready cash. He had no cash before a few days. Mrs. Hall went to Griffin's room. He was there. She asked what he was doing to her chairs upstairs. She also asked how he entered a locked room. The scientist lost his temper. He became furious and cried, I will show you. Suddenly, he threw away all bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. The horrified men in the bar were staring at a headless man. The police constable who had been informed arrived now. He was totally surprised to find that he was to arrest a man without a head. There followed a wonderful scene. The scientist, Griffin, started throwing his clothes one by one. He was becoming more and more invisible and he threw off one garment after another. Finally, the man became invisible. Some people who tried to hold him were bitten by the unseen blows that came from nowhere. In the end, Jeffers, means that constable, was knocked unconscious. Nervous and excited people were crying, hold him! Griffin was invisible and free now. No one knew where to lay hands on him. So, my dear children, this was the summary of the chapter Footprints Without Feet. Thank you.